Ben 10's Reboot is by far the most hated iteration of the Ben 10 series to date. I haven't even really seen the show at this point in the video, and I can still tell you why. Just like a lot of people, I grew up with Ben 10. It was an important piece of my childhood. I watched him grow up and develop from being an immature, occasional jerk with his heart in the right place to a most of the time mature, responsible superhero who even with his flaws kept trying to do the right thing and never gave up. Now, take all of that and just completely erase it. That's what you get with the reboot. Years of development, heartfelt moments, great fights, I'm talking straight hands, gone. Even though I agree with that, I still think it's fair to at least give the show a chance. The criticism I've heard of the show are pretty much the same points regurgitated ad nauseum. Some I disagree with entirely, so I've decided to take it upon myself to form my own opinion on the show while addressing people's issues with the show since it's concluded, to find out the truth about Ben 10's reboot. Here's my most controversial opinion. I like the idea of Kevin and the Antitrix as a concept.
What did you say, nigga?
Speaking of the watch itself, I despise its design. I don't know why they didn't make it a red Omnitrix. That would have been beautiful. Like, what kids are buying this monstrosity? I wanted so badly to like everything about it, especially since I knew people were calling him bootleg albedo. I completely disagree with that assessment. I think it's a genius idea because in my Ben and Kevin video, I talked about how Kevin was Ben without a good influence. Well, they literally took that idea and took it to the next level by giving him his own Omnitrix, while Albedo was only the physical antithesis of Ben. Not only that, they come up with a horrible way to introduce it, a dream. The idea came to him in a dream. I cannot verbally explain how angry I was over the terrible writing decision. You know what? 20 likes, I'll rewrite all the garbage from the reboot because I can't lie. Some of the concepts in the show were honestly outstanding, but so horribly executed it raises my blood pressure. Now there is some good in the show. Don't get it twisted. Best part about the show is Ben and Gwen being a full-on team. I couldn't stand them beefing all the time for no reason. And of course, I had to support my dog Ben in most situations. Gwen was the more mature one of the two by a long shot, and in this version you can tell she still is, but she indulges Ben and his wacky antics. By far the most welcome change to the story for me. Having Gwen be cool with Ben means she actually contributes to the story in a meaningful way, and not just in fights with magic like in Ben 10. Being honest, I think this might rank up there for my favorite version of Gwen's character. She retains all the qualities that make her herself, with the addition of being a real one. Take this one scene for example.
Ben! Are you hurt? Only my pride. I'm sorry, Gwen. You gave it a great shot. Thanks.
And in this, there's no I told you so later on, even though Gwen was right. Just a short, heartfelt moment between family. Like, Gwen's borderline my favorite character on the show. I also like Dr. Animo more. He was given a personality besides being weird animal monster guy. In episode 15, Animo gives his backstory on what made him the bum that nobody loves. And that made him a more compelling character for me, due to the fact that I've never cared for him. I also think Steam Smythe is outstanding. He's a villain that would work in any version of Ben 10. A man so obsessed with the past he can't cope with the future. That's a pretty smart concept overall. Plus his character design is dope. Before I get beyond negative, even with all of the show's faults, you can tell there was legitimate effort. Even though this approach didn't work for me, there's still things you can enjoy about the show, like its animation and some of the jokes I actually think are pretty good. I think the show is kinda baller based off the 30-ish episodes I've watched. Positive segment over. Now for what was just about the most disliked change in the show. I used to think the omniverse art style was bad, but the way humans are drawn in this show is not great. First, there are these huge bug eyes Ben and Gwen have that are just bad to look at visually. What they should have done, in my opinion, is use the way omniverse drew eyes if they wanted to make it that big, and then add pupils to differentiate. I'm not going to knock the way they drew aliens because they clearly had a set look in mind, way more child friendly. Instead of designs kids and adults could both enjoy with gigantic frames and diverse appearances, we just have guys in costumes. Main offender here is Stinkfly. He was like a gross bug thing, but now he's a gross bug guy. Call him Stink Guy. He's just generic now. I'm not gonna diss Upgrade since all they did was change the color scheme and it doesn't look bad in the style to me. This rounded approach has made the villains less intimidating and, well, villainous. Poor Maximum. Poor Maximum Tennyson. He's just horrible here. He used to be kind, taught life lessons, and wasn't completely worthless to the story besides being a transportation device. Now, he's just lame, only there for bad jokes and being incapable of anything. Compare this guy to this, and you would be shocked to find out they were the same person. Oh, and he's also stupid for comedic effect because old man dumb equals funny. I don't even care if this didn't need to be in the video, but it infuriated me, so in it goes. In episode 23, Grandpa Max is just a burden on my happiness and mental health. In the beginning of the episode, Ben wants a sumo slammer card, and they're right there. But nah, he's not allowed to have nice things because he has a whole day planned. Even though he only does one thing in the episode, gets tired, and wants to go home, which isn't even the worst thing. Ben gets the card due to him using his powers and beats some entitled piece of human waste, Billy Billions, in a race, then actual fight to get it. But do you know what Grandpa Max does? Do you know what this old, fat, disgusting piece of does? Just rips up the card because it's a playing card. Mind you, this was the same man creaming his pants over Batman. Grandpa Maximilian, for some reason, unlike his classic counterpart, can't seem to empathize with his grandchildren. Mainly Ben, just undermining his passions and interests, and it makes me want to harm him physically. I feel better now. I want to preface this by saying this is not to attack the voice actors in any way. They were given a job and fulfilled it to the best of their abilities. It's just that the voice changes harmed the show more than helped. For example, Stinkfly, who's voiced by the same voice actor as Kevin 11, Beast Boy, and Michelangelo. He also voices Michelangelo. I just cannot get the sound out of my head when I hear him on screen. The change made Stinkfly even more generic. I don't think it's understood that even a voice can add personality, and changing Stinkfly's voice changes his personality. Same with Heat Blast. I like his new voice, do not get it twisted. I just don't think it works. The old Heat Blast sounded like his vocal cords were charred, which fit his design.
Hey, I'm on fire, and I'm okay. Check it out.
I understand why they did it. The old voices wouldn't have worked for the new designs, but that doesn't mean I dislike the decision any less. Same with being comedy focused. I can't name anybody on earth who thought a comedy centered Ben 10 would not only be good, but work. For me personally, a lot of the jokes land a large enough amount that I'm ashamed to even look at myself in the mirror to see what I've become. I think that's why people consider the show dumbed down. Like, even the lessons they teach in the show are child friendly. Having everything's not a contest, or even the little things can make a big difference, isn't information you wouldn't know unless you were like 8 or below. In Ben 10 Classic, you had lessons taught, like how valuable trust is. A lesson was given, yet the episode still ended on a somber note. It wasn't, gee, I learned my lesson, time to end the episode. It was meaningful. Let me prove my point on the difference between the reboot and classic by comparing the wrestling episodes for each. Right off the bat, the most important piece of Ben 10, the reboot, reboot doesn't possess is stakes. And I'm not talking for vampires or meat. In the reboot, Ben doesn't have an identity to protect, and the Omnitrix timer is never consistent, maybe due to how short the runtime is, so there's no sense of danger in the show. In the classic version, it immediately builds tension. In the first 2 minutes, Ben has broken Gwen's laptop, so off break, he needs to find a way to fix it without her knowing. Nothing tremendous, but there's an instant sense of tension added to the story when he becomes a wrestler. He has to keep his powers a secret, and he has to win the prize before Gwen and Max wake up. Sure, the timeout thing was in the reboot's version, but it was not nearly this important. In the original, the tension never broke. Ben even gets jumped while the Omnitrix is on cooldown, giving that purpose. There is almost no wasted moment in the episode, and that's the difference. They don't stop for a week or even good joke. The reboot couldn't even take their fight seriously. Unlike the original, they played it for laughs for the most part. I still love the episode. I think it was great, but the classic version just blows it out of the water completely. If you like the reboot's version, that's fine too. The truth about the reboot is it isn't the Ben 10 you know and love, and shouldn't be treated as such. It's a completely different entity. So does that mean you can compare it to the others? Well, yes and no. It's got the same villains, characters, powers, and everything, besides a few new additions, but it's a completely different genre. If you consider the old Ben 10 an action adventure with a good story, the reboot is a comedy action with less focus on the story. Would I watch this show if it wasn't for a video? Probably not. Would I watch it if it wasn't Ben 10? No. With that being said, I still thought the show was mediocre. Like, I enjoyed it to an extent. I enjoyed what it gave. I didn't think it was great or anything. And that's the truth about the Ben 10 reboot.